When we were looking at what was the next big thing that we're going to do, it was around 2015-16 when PSD2 was kind of picking up in the Europe. There was really no regulatory challenge for us when we were looking at API banking, but we were looking for the next big thing to be done. Obviously, conceptually, it was kind of quite difficult for people to understand when it came to picking up something completely new and getting people to understand that that could add value to the organization. So when we were dealing with this problem, we had to deal with different kinds of stakeholders in the company. Fundamentally, of course, we did have an advantage. We were coming from the back. As a bank, we were a small bank. So the bank senior management saw the value of digitization. They saw the value of doing something different, and they were constantly looking for new ideas. To that extent, we had lesser hurdles to cross, I would say. But to get people to understand what API banking itself meant first um, was a large journey. The first journey was to simplify the language. And I would say that so I had this problem. My CEO used to tell me that you like to throw technical jargon at the team. So we had a colleague with us called Ribu. He was one of those persons who made it simplified for the various stakeholders. So the first step was to first kind of get the buy-in of the tech organization. It wasn't too difficult because anyway, there were just two of us in that organization taking all the decisions. And we believed that this is going to be a very important thing from laying out a very clean architecture. It was less a business proposition. It was more a clean architecture in the beginning when we started thinking about it. In those days, we would have this extremely badly wired up large banks, and we felt that we shouldn't bring this bank into that state. So when we thought about the middle layer, the connecting layer, the integration layer, we were very clear that we needed to have a clear microservices oriented API structure. But as we thought along, we realized that this can be upgraded into a very good business proposition. So the next step was to actually kind of have a conversation about this with the various people from the various running various businesses, right? So we went to the Mancom, and we had to explain the concept in the simplest manner possible. And I would say it is etched in my mind the way we explained it, and we said this is about the way Google Maps work, how Google Maps and Ola has been integrated. It's as simple as that, and one needs to kind of take banking to that kind of simplicity, and it kind of hit the nail for the management committee. From there on, it was about preparing a high-level business plan and going to the board. Now, the board had a lot of technically enthusiastic board members. So when we started speaking through what we want to do, how we want to, so I think the key thing which kind of made this whole process of selling to that organization simple was the fact that the entire language in which we communicated to people was not about security. It was not about integrations. It was more about why it was important to get multiple organizations connected. It was in that language that we were speaking outside of the tech organization, and I think that resonated with most people. It also resonated because in the organization by then they had understood the value of partnerships. We were running the MFI business through a bunch of BCs, and because the business correspondent model had worked, the bank kind of understood that working with partners is a faster jump to growth. It is a faster path to growth. So obviously the growth story appealed. Next came the execution. We were pretty, we were very clear as a company, as a bank, that we would not invest in, I mean, today people discuss open source and, stack products of large companies, and people prefer open source. But we chose, because we knew that this was going to be a platform on which we were going to do a lot of things. It was not only about internal rewiring, it was our channel story, it was going to be our partner story, it was going to be our um, a way forward in terms of even our data story. In that sense, we were starting to think how this can become the basis of large amounts of data, which can then become source of origination for clients. Now we built a very, very large vision for ourselves. So we kind of invested in the best product in the industry. We spent the money, we got it in, and we went live with the first version of the product within 3 to 4 months. Now came the challenge of getting people to sell it, because people just didn't know how to sell it, because it was kind of a tech sale. It meant that people would go. So for instance, let's imagine we had launched IMPS through APIs. Most of the people who sold IMPS would have gone and told a client, look, why don't you send your payments to us and we have IMPS done, and then it would get commoditized, because people really weren't thinking solutions. People were treating IMPS as a commodity and API as a channel, whereas we were thinking solutions. So we started flipping, and sitting inside technology, we started running business. We started bringing in business by flipping the story, where we were engaging with partners and saying, look, you have a problem to solve. You can't solve all the problems. These are the rails that we will give you, which will help you solve your problem. And suddenly it was about combined solutions in the market. It was about expense management. It was about domestic money transfer. It was about other enabled payments through BCs. When we started flipping the story, and that meant more and more and more fintechs started coming to us, and then we started making the entire API platform to start looking richer and richer. It told its own story. Post that, it was just another reset. In 2016, we did a reset of the business case. We put a target for ourselves on API banking, which was not the case in the beginning. In the beginning, it was starting to look more like a channel conversation and less like a business conversation. Somewhere in 2016, we went back to the board and said, look, we are going to create an organization called Banking as a Service. We are going to ask them to create a business line which will grow at about 30% year on year. It will bring in, and I mean, rightfully so, we had to be material for the bank to continue to invest on us. So we had to show huge growth. So we built in a lot of new concepts as we went along, and launched a marketing construct called, Partners Ka Bank. What 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 I can tell you as a story of building a business out of a small concept called API banking to really making a business line, which is today a very, very powerful business line for RBL Bank. I can say this, that we had to remodel our thinking. We had to stop selling banking product commodities. We had to sell technology solutions. We had to think customer first. We had to say, okay, this is the customer's requirement and this is how I will solve for it. We had to change the spiel of our conversations with our clients. And I think the first stage of getting our stakeholders to align um, was was uh, uh, was one kind of hurdle. The second kind of hurdle is when you launch a product and want the entire organization to put their might behind it. There, I think it was more about leading by example. Once we had created the brand, once we had created an example of how things had to be done, people caught on, and then it just went ahead. So I think there are two different things one needs to do, especially when you are trying to launch something which is intensely technical, but it is going to bring in huge business. That's how I would say the whole process and journey was.
Perfect.